trying to get Lily over in our room. Myra.
Look like what?
Madam President, I think we're waiting for one more board member.
I was just about to say the same thing. Good job.
Madam President, I think we are all here.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the regular board meeting of the Board of Directors of the School District for the City of Allentown for today, May 28th, 2020. There was no executive session held prior to this regular board meeting. We will now have roll call. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mrs. Brace,
Here.
Mrs. Conover,
Present.
Mrs. Wilt,
Here.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Here.
Miss Matheson,
Here.
Miss Vega,
Here.
Mr. Miller,
Here.
Mr. Theo,
Here.
Miss Harris.
Here.
9 board members are present.
Thank you. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
to
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening, and thank you to everyone who has joined us tonight. As our school year winds down, I'd like to take a moment tonight to recognize our students. Every day for the past 2 months, I've enjoyed opening up social media and finding pictures of our kids working hard throughout the district. They dove in headfirst and accomplished a goal that no one ever set out for them to have this year, and that was mastering virtual learning. They got the work done and are just a few days away from being able to call the school year complete. So thank you to the almost 17,000 students who call ASD their district. Tonight, we will be asked to vote on graduation videos for our seniors, as well as approving the students in the graduating class of 2020. While this was not the year anyone envisioned, and certainly not the way our seniors expected to end their last year of high school, I hope they feel recognized and feel our appreciation for all the hard work they've put in. I'd also like to take some time to recognize our student board representatives who came to board and committee meetings and served on the Allentown Human Relations Commission and gave us input throughout the year. From Allen High School, we had Zanaya, Peter, John Carlos, Kareen, David, and Joshua. From Building 21, we had Kyle, Nicholas, Michelle, Jail, Xander, and Mason. And from DRF, we had Myra, Rashaan, Zahai, Sierra, Destiny, and Angela. Thank you to those students for providing a student-centered vision during our meetings. We will be sending certificates to you in the near future, acknowledging your dedication to the district. After Mr. Parker's remarks are when we will be able to have public comment on agenda items. This is just a reminder to the public that if you would like to make a comment on any item that we are voting on tonight, now would be the time to start to raise your hand that you would like to make those comments. If you would like to make a comment on something that is not on the agenda, you would wait until the end of the meeting to make those, to raise your hand. And if you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by hitting asterisk and the number 9, and that will show up that you want to make a comment. Mr. Parker?
Thank you, Madam President. I will take just a quick second to acknowledge, I think, the other half of what you did a really great job of celebrating our students, also our parents and our staff who have also learned to pivot here very quickly to support distance learning in this environment. As a parent myself who has become a teacher again, I have never ever been more thankful and appreciative of the staff at Trexler Middle School than I am right now. Having my daughter home has given me a whole new appreciation. So I know I speak on behalf of lots of parents that we appreciate our teachers and our staff and what they do with our kids every day. And I speak on behalf of our school staff in thanking our parents for allowing us the opportunity to work with and support their children each and every day. So our children, our parents, our teachers, a really great opportunity for us to stop and celebrate making it through, almost through a really strange into a school year. But I would like to take a few moments from my remarks today, and I'm going to bequeath this time to two gentlemen who are going to make a short presentation and celebrate one of our own who is making a decision, although I don't know if I would say the school board should accept it, who is making a decision that we know was coming for a while, but we're losing a great member of the Allentown family. So with no further ado, I will pass the virtual microphone to Mr. Falco and Principal Mayfield, who will share a few words about our soon to be retiring basketball coach at Allen High School. Mr. Falco.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. I've had the pleasure of working with Doug for just over 10 years while I was at Allen High School. And it wasn't the wins and the exciting games that did me proud as a principal of Doug, but his interaction with our students, our young people, our young men and women that he was in contact with. Beyond the X's and O's of athletics, he taught our kids and instilled in them pride, integrity, character, and loyalty. What it took to be a good person, a successful member in our community. He greeted everyone with a warm smile and gave them his undivided attention, whether it was a student, staff member, a stranger. In our business, that's what legends are made of, and that's what they're all about. And Doug is one of those legends, and we'll miss him. I know the kids will miss him, and I know the staff at Allen will miss him. I wish him good luck.
Doug Snyder. Real simple for me. You were and are restorative before we started practicing it here. When I think of Doug Snyder, I'm thanking you right now for your service. I'm thanking you for the ride along before the movie was even made. I'm thanking you for your nurturing of students, staff, stakeholders, families. But most importantly, Doug, I am thanking you for your educational class as a teacher, as a man. You didn't take lightly to your duties. You relished in them. And during hardship and challenges, you still managed to have that educational class. And finally, for me, when I think of Doug Snyder, I think of distinguished, I think of outstanding, I think of unparalleled. And then for that G, what we try to follow, the greatness. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the roads that you have paved for so many. You are one of a kind, Doug, and we appreciate you greatly at Canary Nation.
Mr. Falco and Mr. Mayfield, I appreciate the opportunity to work with you and for you. I appreciate the opportunity from you all that I could spend 23 years of my professional career in the same school district and same city that spawned me. I was born and raised in the shadows of Jefferson Elementary School, went to South Mount and graduated from Allen. And probably the reason I'm in the position I've been in for 23 years is because of the teachers and the coaches who had such an impact on my life coming through the Allentown School District. So thank you for letting me have that same opportunity to give back to the kids from the city. Every time I was in a classroom, every time I was in the gym with the basketball team, I wanted those student athletes to have as good or better an experience than any student athlete in the entire Lehigh Valley at any high school. And that's what we're all about here at Allen High School. So I really appreciate your praise. Thank you very much.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't jump in. I don't know how to raise my hand on the actual panel thing. But, you know, as someone that had Doug Snyder as a coach, as a colleague, And as a mentor, I couldn't be more appreciative for everything he did for me, everything I've seen him done for Allentown, and everything he did from William Allen High School. I got into teaching partly due to his influence. When I had lessons I had to do in college for pre-student teaching, they were the lessons that he instructed me in my junior year in high school, just stolen blatantly and presented to my classmates at college. So I thank you for all your hard work, all your effort, and the lasting effects you've had on Allentown and on Allen High School.
Thank you, Mr. Sang.
I would like to jump in too, because Coach, I was going to wait till the personnel report to say it, but I wanted to just say thank you to you. I know you are a true institution in ASD, but I also know that you, having had all three of my children be your students, I know that education comes first for you. And I want to say thank you for that. You are an exceptional educator, and you are truly going to be missed as part of the Canary Nation. You have touched more lives than you will ever realize. So thank you. And I hope that you and your wife get to spend some quality time together now that you're not always, on a basketball court or in a van taking our boys somewhere to the next basketball game. So thank you very much for all that you've done for us.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilt.
Since we're doing this now, I just want to add from another angle, Coach Snyder, you have been the pride and joy of many Princeton alumni, because the motto for the university which you graduated from is in the service of nations and the service of humanity. And you have been in the service of humanity throughout your entire career. You have upheld the need for an education while also upholding the need to understand people and people's needs. And you have never denied anyone what they stand in need of. And thank you for being an example for many, some that you don't even know about, but when I share the post about what you're doing in Allentown, you get a whole lot of likes. I just want to let you know that. So thank you for all that you do. And congratulations on a wonderful career, and we'll miss you.
Thank you.
So thank you again for allowing me a little bit of latitude there, Madam President. I, again, would echo the sentiments of everyone here for Coach Snyder. I wore my Allen colors just for you on this evening. Thank you for all that you've done and the lives that you've touched along the way.
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Thank you. May I have a motion, or I'm sorry, public comment. I see one hand raised for the public comment, or two now. So Daniel Freed, if someone can put him into the meeting. Daniel, if you can state your name and address.
Hi, Daniel Freed here, 2949 West Livingston Street. You guys see me?
We can hear you, yeah.
All right. I just wanted to give my greatness to Coach Snyder and our new coach coming in, who you guys will announce. Coach Snyder was a great role model for me. I've known him for most of my life. I played for him, graduated from Allen in 2002, and just can't say enough of what he's done for me and a lot of my friends and teammates.
Thank you. I see Donna Reitnauer, if someone can bring her in. Donna, if you can state your name and address for the record.
Donna Reitnauer, 1139 South 10th Street, Allentown. And I was going to speak regarding the naming of the new elementary school. So would you like me to do that now or to wait? I wasn't sure if that was on the agenda this evening or not.
That's not on the agenda, so if you want to wait till the end of the meeting, that would be great.
Okay, just let me know when it's my turn.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
And Darnell Braswell was at the top of the list. Does that mean his hand was raised via a phone? I'm not sure if a hand shows up.
I am here.
Okay,
Can
did
you
you
hear me?
want to, yes, did you want to make public comment?
Sure.
Okay.
Do I need to say my address as well? My name and address?
Yes,
Darnell
please.
Braswell, 2029 West Washington Street, Allentown, Pennsylvania. Coach Schneider, you know, we spoke not too long ago, but I just want to say thank you for everything that you have done for me and my friends. You instilled the level of confidence and belief in young men and women, you know, with your teaching duties as well. But I'm speaking from a basketball standpoint here, that there was things bigger than us, you know, bigger than a game of basketball. And you gave us confidence that we can go out into the world and become community leaders and influence our community in a positive way. So I just want to say thank you for all that you have done for myself, my close friends, and those that you have touched bases with on a daily basis over the past 23 years. And I wish you and your wife the greatest time, you know, during this retirement phase. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darnell.
Thanks, Darnell.
Okay, may I have a motion for the approval of the minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Nicholas, seconded by
I'll second that.
Nancy. Is there any discussion on the motion? I don't see any. Nancy, is your hand still up from before?
Probably.
Okay. Seeing
Mrs.
no-
Wilt, Mrs. Wilt,
Yeah, we're calling the roll now.
Oh, so sorry. Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Miss Matheson, Miss Matheson,
Yes.
Miss Vega,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Theo,
Yes.
Miss Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace.
Yes.
9-0 passes.
Okay. We'll now move on to information updates. The Allentown Human Relations Commission, Ms. Vega, is there any update?
Yeah, so we did meet. We also met virtually. Everyone is super excited at the Human Relations Committee right now. We are working diligently to show the city of Allentown that we stand against the violence and the racism that's happening right now. So there'll be a couple of things coming up that we're doing collectively together as a board, and we can talk about it next time.
Okay, thank you. The Allentown Public Library, Ms. Harris.
We did not meet, so there is no report.
Okay, thank you. The Allentown Recreation Commission, Ms. Harris or Ms. Wilt.
We haven't met either.
Okay.
There's no report.
Allentown School District Foundation, Ms. Wilt or Mr. Thiel.
We did not meet. However, I did want to just share, the foundation is trying to figure out how, doing things virtually as well. Every year, the guidance counselors provide their recommendations for our seniors for our scholarships, and that has continued. Typically, that's something that's shared at the end of the year scholar athlete ceremonies at each of the high schools. But just wanted to let you all know that this year, the students will be notified by mail that they were the recipients for the scholarship. So that is still ongoing, just doing it in a different way. And just as a little shout out to Lehigh Parkway, they have had a TIG grant in the past where the students are able to do I Am on a Bookshelf. So the students not only write the book, but they also illustrate the book. And typically they do a presentation at Barnes and Noble where they're, meet the authors. But obviously that didn't happen this year. So the teachers and the administrators over there decided that they were going to read the books virtually. So if you go on to the foundation website and probably Lehigh Parkway's website, you can actually watch the teachers reading the books of our authors from the I Am on a Bookshelf. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit, Ms. Conover.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. LCTI, Ms. Conover, Ms. Matheson, or Ms. Johnson-Watts.
We met on yesterday and covered a number of areas of concern. One is that the different awards programs have listed all of the awardees. I was trying to find a way that I could attach this document into the meeting chat. Is that possible? Is there a way to do that? If not, I will check and see if there is a way that it can be posted to the website at another time. But there were a number of Allentown School District students who received recognition over the year for the different clubs, such as DECA, that they participated in over the school year.
Okay, if you want to get that to Mr. Parker, I'm sure he can get it so that we can post it on our social media and website.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Matheson?
Yeah, it was just distributed.
Okay. Ms. Matheson or Ms. Conover, do you have anything else?
No, I was going to talk about those awards.
And there is a donation being made to our William Allen High School from the food services of perishables for distribution to the tune of about $1,900. That was determined yesterday.
Okay, thank you. The Safety Task Force, Ms. Conover or Ms. Harris?
There's no report at this time.
Okay, and then for our student representatives, we have a couple with us. So if they would, whoever, when I call your name, if you want to say anything, feel free. Kareen?
Hi, everyone. Just a few things from Allen's student report. Cap and gowns are scheduled to be distributed at Allen on Monday and Tuesday. Last name starting with A through D go from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. E through K, 10 a.m. through 12 p.m., L through N, 12 p.m. through 1 p.m., and O through Z, 1 p.m. through 3 p.m. Pickups are to take place at door 5 under the bridge on Linden Street. It is advised that students bring their student ID. Also, big thanks to the PTSA board for giving us a very, very generous donation to the senior members of NHS. They will be paying for all our graduations. Congratulations to all AP students who finished their exams. You worked really hard for this, so don't lose hope on getting that 5. And also, congrats to senior Carrie Spangler on the Aero STEM scholarship awarded from Da Vinci Science Center. And lastly, I just want to give thanks to Mr. Snyder for everything he's done for me and my class that I had with him last year during my 11th grade year. Thank you, Mr. Snyder, for everything, and I wish you the best. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Karini.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. John Carlos, do you have anything else to add for Alan?
I do, thank you. The first thing I'd like to bring up is that the students participating the early college program at Lehigh Carbon Community College have finished their first year on the road to attaining their associate's degree. So they are now enjoying their summer earlier. My second item is that the class of 2020's virtual graduation ceremony will be set for Saturday, June 27th. My third item is the 11 Allen seniors have graduated from both Allen and Newark Academy. So congratulations to those 11 students. My fourth item is Canary Nation salutes Bill Best and Jerry Epler for their outstanding service during our technology and device distribution. And finally, the Ortiz Arts Foundation donated a sign congratulating the class of 2020. The sign is up on one of the pillars on the school to congratulate the proud Canary Nation class of 2020 because they are now officially part of the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. From Building 21, Nicholas Cruz.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's kind of nervous over here, but so I just want to say thank you for everything the district has done. And Building 21 continues to support us seniors, and all the students. So first, we continue to do our distance learning. Building 21 has virtual meetings. Each class has their own Zoom time, and students continue every day to pop in to teachers and stuff. We still collect our daily attendance every morning. Also, the student government is collecting pictures and videos from seniors for our senior video at the end of the school year. Our virtual graduation is June 28th. And then also, I wasn't here last month, but to our seniors who accepted to where they're going for college, very proud of them. And because they tried their hardest, and especially through this time, not being in school and stuff, but they definitely did it. And I'm proud to say that as a family, as a school, we were able to get through this together, even though we're not together. But I know that they continue to support us every day, and it kind of sucks that we won't be able to go back to school. But I'm happy for everything Building 21 has done for me and for everyone, and I thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And then for DRF, we'll start with you, Myra.
So just as the end of the school year is coming up, June 5th is the last day for seniors, and June 12th is the last day for underclassmen. Underclassmen will keep their laptops, Chromebooks for their summer, and the seniors who can drop off their items and return books such as laptops, and also to pay off their debts, June 9th and June 10th. And then just following after that, June 16th and 17th is when we can pick up our cap, gowns, and awards, and our virtual commencement for DRF's graduation will be June 26th. We also have we have a video club that's making the senior video, which is due tomorrow, all the photos and videos that we have. And the PPL building is lighting up dark blue for DRF on June 6th in honor for the class of 2020. And I just want to say thank you to all the teachers and faculty and staff members that have helped me out through my senior year. It's been a rough year for us and very confusing for the end, but I do want to give them every applaud to them because they've been making sure they've been staying in contact with us and making sure they're always listening to us. So I'm very proud of that. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Rashaan, do you have anything to add?
No, I just want to thank everyone. It was an honor being a representative, and I'm beyond thankful that I met everyone and worked with everyone this past school year. thank you for all the hard work you guys did to help every single one of us in the Allentown School District during these times. And I wish you guys all the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Zahai, do you have anything to add? All right, let's go to Sierra.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you for this opportunity and everything you guys do. And just thank you for letting me join in with these meetings. I know this was like the last one. So yeah, and thank you to my guidance counselors because they've been really helping me with everything and with my classes for next year because I'm a senior next year. Woohoo. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will move on to the Board of Directors report. For this, I'm going to pull item E because we have to do a voice vote based on who we're voting for that seat. So do I have a motion for the approval of items A through D?
I'll make that motion, Sarah.
Ms. Wilt, is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
I'll second it.
Ms. Harris seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no hands and hearing none. Roll call vote.
Mrs. Conover,
Yes.
Miss Matheson,
Yes.
Miss Vega,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Theo,
Yes.
Miss Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt.
Yes.
9-0 passes.
Okay. For option E then, we have to vote. There are two candidates. It's either Mr. Garcia or Mr. Foose for the trustee at large seat for the Board of Trustees. So when you're saying, when Ms. Murillo calls your name, you're just going to say Mr. Foose or Mr. Garcia for who you would like to vote for the at-large seat, and then we will submit that ballot in to L-Tri-C. So if you'd like to roll call vote for that, Ms. Murillo.
Miss Matheson,
Garcia.
Miss Vega,
Garcia.
Mr. Miller,
Garcia.
Mr. Theo,
Mr. Garcia.
Mrs. Brace,
Mr. Garcia,
Mrs. Conover,
Luis Garcia.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Luis Garcia.
Mrs. Wilt,
Mr. Garcia.
Miss Harris.
I proudly say Luis Garcia.
All 9 board members have voted for Mr. Garcia.
okay, thank you very much. Moving on to the Secretary and Treasurer's report. May I have a motion for the approval of this Secretary and Treasurer's report?
So moved.
Mr. Thiel, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Miller, any discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
Miss Vega,
No.
Miss Matheson,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Theo,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
No.
Miss Harris,
No.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover.
No.
5-4 passes.
Thank you. Moving on to the Superintendent's report. May I have a motion for the approval of the Superintendent's report?
I'll make that motion.
Ms. Wilt, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Miller, any discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover,
No.
Ms. Harris,
No.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Yes.
Miss Matheson,
Yes.
Miss Vega.
Yes.
7-2 passes.
Okay, moving on to the personnel report. May I have a motion for the approval of the personnel report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll make the second.
Discussion?
I actually, Sarah, I don't know if I didn't know if I raised my hand, but I wanted to just, I know earlier I wanted to address Coach Snyder, but I just wanted to, on the record, thank all of our retiring teachers for all of their dedication to our kids over their years of service to ASD. I don't know all of them. I knew Coach Snyder, and I certainly had the pleasure of knowing Kim Golden, a teacher at Rob. And if the others are like those two individuals, I know they went above and beyond. And I just wanted to be on record as thanking them for their dedication to our students.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover,
No.
Miss Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Miss Matheson,
Yes.
Miss Vega,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
8-1 passes.
Thank you. And Mr. Parker, I believe you have an introduction.
Yes, and I believe Mr. Mayfield is still on with us. So I will start and then pass the ball to Mr. Mayfield to introduce the new basketball coach at Allen High School. I couldn't imagine having larger shoes to fill, but I believe Mr. Mayfield believes he has someone who will step in and do an excellent job. Shannon?
Good evening again, everyone. It is my proud honor to bring back a canary to the nest, to lead the program, to model not only to the young men, but to the young ladies in this school. This is a young man who has gone through, written his own story, and now has a new chapter to write. At this time, it is my proud honor to announce that Darnell Braswell, former Canary, is the new head coach for the William Allen High School basketball program.
Mr. Mayfield, thank you for the opportunity. It's a tremendous honor. You know, it's one that I won't take lightly. It means a lot. You know, William Allen High School done a lot for me throughout my career. And, you know, I hope that I can impact the youth the way, you know, those who coached and led the youth before me. It's an opportunity that I'm ready for. It's a challenge that I'm ready to embrace. And, you know, you're getting a guy who's going to put in the absolute best foot forward and put in the maximum effort to try to impact the young kids, you know, who walk the hallways and come out for the basketball program to lead them in the right way. So thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. And I'm really looking forward to getting started, you know, at William Allen High School in the fall.
Welcome home.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayfield.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the finance report. If the board would like, we can pull the budget to be discussed separately.
Yes, I make a motion that we pull Exhibit A, the budget, to be voted on separately.
Okay, is there anything else that needs to be voted on separately under finance?
I raised my hand. I'm not sure if you saw it.
I do see it. Is that to pull something to vote separately or to discuss something?
Well, let me ask you. Will now be the time for me to ask to pull out the 4% increase for the tax increase?
That would be when we're talking about the budget. This is just if you want to vote on any of the other items separately. So we're going to talk about the budget by itself, but then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 other things on.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So I'm going to do a motion first for exhibits B through I. Is there a motion for the approval of exhibits B through I?
Motion for the approval of motions B through I.
Okay, Ms. Johnson Watts made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I'll second.
Ms. Harris seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Cheryl, is your hand still up for the budget part?
Yes, I'm in lower.
Okay, seeing and hearing none. Oh,
Excuse me, what was that motion? I had a technical difficulty. I don't know what happened, but I didn't hear.
the motion is for the approval of exhibits B. Oh, I'm sorry. There's a J on here. I didn't. Is there a J? My agenda doesn't have a J. Yes, J.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the?
Well, all right. So we did the motion for B through I because mine doesn't. I don't have the J on my agenda, but I see there's a J here. So let's just do B through I, and we'll vote on J later. So the approval. The approval, Lisa, is for the motion is for the approval of item letters B through I on the agenda.
Thank you. I heard you.
Okay. Linda, do you have a question?
Yeah. So B through I, that would include the trans, right?
Correct. Yes.
Can we pull out the trans?
Yes, we can pull that separate. So, Ms. Johnson Watts, you made the motion, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Are you willing to change your motion to pull the B out and make B through J since I didn't see the J on there?
Yes.
Okay. And then Ms. Harris, you seconded. Are you okay with seconding C through J? Okay. So we're gonna vote on C through J.
I raised my hand.
Yes. Go ahead, Lisa.
I wanted to pull that C out.
Okay. So we're gonna vote on D through J then.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So just officially, I'm going to take back the original motion, and I am replacing that with the motion to approve items D, as in David, through J.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson Watts. Ms. Harris, do you still second that motion?
I second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion on the approval of exhibits D through J? Lisa, your hand is up. Is that for this or for something else?
It's coming down.
Okay. Seeing and hearing no discussion on D through J, please call the roll for D through J.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover,
Yes.
Mrs. Grace,
Yes.
Miss Vega,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Miss Matheson,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Theo.
Yes.
9-0 passes.
Okay, let's go backwards up till we do the budget last. So is there a motion for Exhibit C, the approval of the Lehigh Valley Children's Center Childcare Rental Agreement. Do I have a motion for that?
I make that motion, Sarah.
Ms. Wilt, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Miller, any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I have discussion.
Okay, go ahead, Lisa.
I still have some concerns in terms of last we talked. It was discussed that the space that they're using is not at a cost to the district, and that never sat right with me, because again, they're using our water, our lights. It's always a cost, and for that reason, I'm going to vote no, because again, I can't say it enough. Our district, we're always on 69 News and in the morning call talking about how much we don't have, but I don't understand how we can have a corner in the building and we can have somebody using our utilities and our services, and we say that it's not really a cost. Those lights are going to be on anyway. So I have some concerns with that. For that reason, I'm voting the way I am.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
Yes, I have some concerns. One of the things when I looked at that was the fact that any of our students who are using that service will have to sign up this spring before the school starts in order to get the waiver for the initial fee. I don't understand that. Why, that doesn't seem right to me when somebody get pregnant, be it a male or female, who is taking care of their child, has to sign up the spring before to get it waived, the fee waived. Why don't we just waiving that fee for all of our students, no matter when they sign up for it?
Are you talking about if they sign up through Child Care Works for Title 20 payments? So I'm saying this just as somebody who works in early learning and has families that are in that program. The program typically has a year wait list to even get any kind of subsidized payments. And it's something that it's not an instant into the program. I know if it's for an infant, sometimes they can get you pushed to the front of the list faster, but it's not something that as soon as you apply for it, you're instantly approved. So they may be saying as soon as the parent might find out that they're pregnant, to get their name on that list so that they know that they're going to get those benefits as quickly as possible. But you can apply for Title 20 at any time. There's not a time frame for applying for Title 20. You can apply for any time. It's just a matter of when you can get on the wait list or off the wait list to actually have the benefit. Does that make sense?
Have we ever seen the gain policy when it comes to that child care facility? Because I've never seen it. I've never seen what these parents have to, what they have to sign up for, what they have to sign to. I've never seen it, and I'm wondering about that because I've heard, I've seen situations where if a parent is not there and they get kicked out of it, and I'm just very concerned because our program has been around 50 years and it's not going to go anywhere. So I just want to make sure that we are doing the right things by our students.
So Mr. Parker, if I'm not mistaken, we don't do anything with registering these children. They register through LVCC, correct? I don't know if you're muted. I lost you.
So, okay, so if we go through that, that means that it is a contract that the parents sign?
Yeah, they would be enrolling through LVCC, not through the district. This is we're agreeing to let them use our space through the contract. So they enroll through LVCC through LVCC's guidelines to be in the program.
And thank you. I was muted. That is correct. And I think Mr. Cole is on if there are some more kind of detailed questions about that. But yeah, it is contracted absolutely through LVCC. The school doesn't manage the enrollment of students.
And I can say this too about the childcare works is that your child can only miss so many days. That's the program. That's just the guidelines of the program that the child enrolled in through LVCC's program. So the baby or the 1, 2, 3-year-old, they can only miss so many days before they lose their Title 20. And that has nothing to do with us as a district. That's just the program guidelines. And it's waived right now because of COVID, but I can't remember off the top of my head how many days it is. But if you miss too many days, then you lose your Title 20 funding.
Okay.
Linda, Linda, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I had a question.
Oh, you muted.
I'm sorry, my phone rang. I see on here, so there are 2 sheets. One has the rates for the infant and toddlers, and then the second page has more rates, but they differ. I'm just confused. Can you help me understand the 2 different pages with the 2 different rates?
So the first page of rates are for the kids who are at Allentown at the high school.
Okay.
So those are for our students who are enrolled in Allen who need care for their children. Those are the rates they pay. The next set of rates are for the children who are at Muhlenberg for the before and after care.
Okay,
so that's
perfect.
why there's a difference.
So then I only had one other question. I get the Title 20 program. It's a good program to assist lower income. So if you don't have if you can't get Title 20 because they're full, there's a waiting list, or maybe you gave birth afterwards, is there a discounted rate since LVCC doesn't pay overhead?
I think, Mr. Cole, if you want to talk to that, I think it's had sent in an email that they do have scholarships potentially.
Yeah, there are a couple avenues, and one of them being that these base rates that are available to our students in any of our school affiliated programs are already reduced rates off their other Allentown city spaces as well. So it is already reduced rate, but yes, they do make every effort to find scholarships or to align assistance for all of the families that could possibly be eligible.
Wait a second, you're saying that's a reduced rate? $197 a week is a reduced rate?
Yes, in comparison to their other Lehigh County and Allentown rates.
I'd like to see those then.
I can tell you that $197 it does not pay for infant care. That's a very reduced rate. Is there any other discussion? All right, if you can call the roll for that one.
Mrs. Conover.
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts.
Wait. I'm sorry.
Mrs. Conover.
You're muted.
Okay, I got distracted. What were we voting on?
On C for the LVCC agreement.
That's no.
Mrs. Johnson Watts.
Yes.
Mrs. Brace.
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt.
Yes.
Ms. Harris.
No.
Ms. Matheson.
Yes.
Ms. Vega.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Theo.
Yes.
7-2 passes.
Okay. Moving up to Exhibit B, which is for the TRAN financing. Do I have a motion for the approval of the TRAN?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Miller, is there a second?
I'll second it.
And Ms. Matheson, any discussion on the motion?
Yes.
Okay, Harris?
Okay, so our trans again is almost what we do every year. It's all again like the payday loan, more or less. Just to get us through the year, correct?
It's to approve money so that until we start collecting our tax revenue, we have the money to be able to pay our bills. It's because the tax revenue doesn't start coming in on July 1, which is when our school year starts over.
So what's the interest rate?
Hey, good evening. This is Scott Shear with PFM. So the interest rate, we're in the process now of putting together the various financing documents. The resolution that's before you this evening is what's called a parameters resolution, where it has a not to exceed rate. Right now, we will not be locking in the rate until probably the latter part of June, maybe like the week of June 22nd, and then the transaction would close on July 1 if the board votes favorably for this evening. We expect the rates to probably be in the high 3% range, but again, that will not be locked in or known for sure for a few more weeks yet.
So we're voting on something that we don't really know. We don't know what the interest rate is going to be, but we're voting on it.
Yeah, there's a maximum rate in the parameters resolution of 5%. But correct, we will not have the rate locked in until closer to the end of June.
So how's that being really good stewards of money? How are we being good stewards? How are we being transparent? How are we asking our people in Allentown to pay for this, and we don't know what's going to happen?
So this is Garrett. The purpose, and again, Kevin Reed, bond counsel, can speak more to this. But again, the parameters resolution, which again has been done by the district in 2017 and 2018, I believe, it's really just a vehicle to provide the financing team flexibility to enter the market at the most opportune time. If you were to not approve the resolution but still wanted to do the tran, we would have to coincide the sale, if you will, the pricing of the note with a board meeting date, which, perfectly fine. School districts do that. It's just, it limits the flexibility, because if you wake up, the day of the meeting and the market's, not looking very good, you either have to wait until the next board meeting date and hope the market's more favorable, or lock a rate in at a day when the market isn't necessarily as good as it could be. Does that help at all?
Not really, because last year we had to pay teachers. So what's the reason for this year? Why do we need this? What's our forced reason for having to go ahead and, voting on this? Because it's, to me, just making us look at where our hands are tied and we have to do this. Why?
I will, again, this is Scott, I will defer to others at the school district, but I think, the short answer is that because of no fund balance, the school district does not have a fund balance, kind of meaning like a checking account, and the real estate tax revenues will not be coming in until a few months into the fiscal year, as well as a lot of the state money as well coming in not until a few months into the school year. There's really no cash available for the district to pay its bills for the first few months of the fiscal year.
So this year you're being honest. Thank you.
Ms. Wilt, I see your hand is up.
I just wanted to clarify, just because I'm not numbers lingo savvy, but I just wanted to clarify, Mr. Shearer, basically what you're saying is it's a bridge loan. For example, you're selling your home and you're buying a new home, and you need to have the cash flow until your closing happens on your current home. It's similar to that in the process?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's a fair analogy. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Wilt. Is there any other discussion? Ms. Johnson-Watts?
Yes, so last year I agreed to a tran, and this year I'm agreeing to a tran. Last year it was because the teachers all decided that they, based on previous information at other board meetings, wanted to make sure that they got their pay that would have been distributed during the summer given to them in lump sum before they exited for the summer. And this year, we are in the middle of COVID-19, and we're not sure what that's going to mean to us in terms of trying to maintain compliant facilities and trying to keep up with what's happening in the response to reopening and all of these other different unknowns. We did receive this wonderful news about $9.8 million coming from the federal government. However, it looks as though that is not going to arrive until July 1. And I think a lot, or after July 1, and I think a lot of people presumed that we would receive that funding as emergency funding, as other people have received emergency funding. I was going to wait until the budget discussion to get more clarification on that. But the reason I'm saying this now is because I want it to be understood why I'm voting for this tran. The bridge loan conversation or analogy is one way to look at it. The way I'm looking at it is I want to make sure that all of the people that are employed are paid on time and all of the bills are paid on time during this very unknown season. And given the timeline of how this tran is set up, once again, we will not be carrying this for years on end. It will be done with. I am not thrilled with the fact that we don't have the fund balance, but there are so many other things that we still need to resolve that I'm willing to vote yes on this. But trust me, my vote on this is really with very, very major apprehension. But if this is what we have to do, this is what we have to do.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson-Watts. Is there any other discussion? Ms. Conover?
So nobody's talking about what the consequences or what the repercussions are going to be in the event we don't have the money when it's time to pay this back. And I understand that other school districts are doing, this is not the first time the tran situation has come up. But then you have districts that are doing a tran, but they have a solid plan in place. So in the event, my question, because I think we talked about it before, in the event we don't have this money, I think by, when is it, March? When do we have to pay it back?
End of March. We're looking to do this as a 9-month maturity, so that would be at the end of March, correct? But it will have a prepayment ability to prepay it early, say after 6 months.
Well, we know we're not going to be able to prepay it early. Let's be realistic. One thing that we do know, we know that there's a need, so that's a given. So that's a given. But we're a district who's in the hole. So that means come March, we may have had this money that we borrowed. But what happens is our number that we're responsible for becomes a bigger number. So we're digging a deeper and a deeper and a deeper hole because we want to pay the employees, the teachers, or pay who we have to pay our bills. And that's understandable. But at the same time, there's the other side of that coin where we need to understand that we are not educating our kids either, because every time we spend more money than we have, people are getting paid, but our kids are not being educated. So I just wanted to shed some light on the fact that this is another bill that doesn't have a solid number attached to it, but we're going to see it.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Is there any other discussion? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Wilt,
Sorry, I lost myself there. I had to unmute. Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Miss Matheson,
Yes.
Miss Vega,
No.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Miss Harris,
No.
Mrs. Conover,
No.
Miss Brace.
Yes.
6-3 passes.
Okay. And now moving on to Exhibit A, which is the proposed final budget. Do I have a motion for the approval of the proposed final budget?
I'll make that motion.
Ms. Wilt, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Thiel? And discussion, Ms. Vega, I see your hand is raised.
So if we can discuss separately the 4% tax increase.
Yep, you have the floor, whatever you want to talk about.
So Sarah, can you help me out? So if I vote yes on this today, then I'll be voting from 1 through 6 here on all these items. And will there be any room to discuss that 4% to try to lower, or is that something that we do today?
No, you could do it today if you want to put an amendment in, but this is not the budget. This is the proposed final budget. So in June, we will discuss the budget again, and at our final budget meeting at the end of June is when typically we do people will put amendments in to change that millage amount.
Okay. Or it can
So
be.
it's completely up to you how, if you want to do an amendment, you can, and you still can do it in June, but if you vote to this 4% today, that does not mean come June, you have to vote for that 4%. That number can change. This is just the proposed budget at this point.
I appreciate you explaining that.
Yep.
So I definitely want to propose a no tax increase.
Okay, so you would just have to say you would like to make an amendment to the motion with whatever you want it to be, and then someone has to second, and then we would vote on that amendment.
No problem. So I would like to make a motion to do a zero tax increase.
I second it.
Okay,
This
so
is not over.
Ms. Vega is making an amendment to the motion for number 5 to assume a 0% millage increase, and it was seconded by Ms. Conover. Is there any discussion on that? Ms. Johnson Watts, your hand's been up. Did you want to discuss on the 0%?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I agree that there should not be a 0% tax increase, but I was more for the mindset to not even approve this proposed budget simply because it will change other numbers in the proposal once we go back to zero tax increase. However, I'm fine with just looking for the amendment and moving forward. Ultimately, my goal is to see this conversation in greater detail in our co-chairs meeting as to our different line items and the expenditures. I feel it's really important at this point to have that discussion rather than later. And I would also like clarification on the state and the timeline for them releasing certain funds to us based on some of the things that are confusing in the news, which I would hope we could get better clarity from communications that have been made to the district that I might not be aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Thiel, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Madam President. A question, and obviously this is the final proposed budget, and then next month we actually will vote on the final budget. So this is the one to present to the public for 30 days. My question is amendment that is on the floor right now by taking the assumption of the tax increase that's in the bar currently, the one that's proposed final that we're talking about. If we drop that down to 0, that changes the math in this budget. Legally obligated to present a final proposed budget, this one we're talking about, that is balanced. I know we're legally obligated to present, or I should say pass, a final budget that's balanced, but are we legally obligated to pass this version, the proposed final, in a balanced state? If so, this amendment will take it out of balance and we'll have to come up with the extra revenue or make cuts on it if it's actually a legal obligation for this to be balanced.
I can help out a little bit, Mr. Thiel, if I can.
Thank you, Mr. Freund.
Yeah. I think the short answer to your question is that although the board can certainly entertain an amendment to the proposed budget, it's really not the most convenient or appropriate time to do that. Section 687 of the school code, which I have open here because I anticipated that there'd be some questions about this, says that the proposed budget is supposed to be approved, prepared on the state form. Then the president, Mrs. Brace, has to certify that it's been properly prepared and presented for the public to examine. That's really the purpose of the proposed final budget, is not to pass what it says, but to certify that it has been prepared in the manner required on the form required, and that it will be presented to the public for public inspection for a minimum of 20 days before it is adopted. Whatever you do on this budget today, this is really, the purpose of this is to say, yes, this is what's been prepared for us to look at, for the public to look at. If we start manipulating the numbers here, that means that the administration is going to have to change the math on the budget somehow or another, and you probably won't actually be able to see what the actual proposed budget is, but they'll have to do whatever it takes to complete that form and to present it for public inspection. So it is not really an appropriate time to do this. Can't say that you are not, it's not unlawful to do it, but it's not really the time to make these kinds of amendments. They should be saved until next month. This is really saying, hey, this is what's been presented to us. This is what we want the public to look at. It's part of the process that the state has mandated for the budget.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Does that answer your question, Mr. Thiel?
Yes, it did. So in essence, and Mr. Freund, if I could restate this and correct me if my understanding is wrong. If the amendment that sits on the floor right now, by taking the 4% down to 0, and that passes, then this would go back to the administration and they would do some mathematical things to make it balanced before it actually becomes the proposed final budget. Is that correct?
I think they'd have to, yeah. In order to.
And then we wouldn't know what those mathematical things may be. I mean, in essence, it could be, cutting programs, furloughs, etc., which would be the most draconian thing to do. But at the same time, when the math is staring you in the face, that's the largest portion of what we have. So we don't know what the administration is going to do by passing this amendment at this time to the budget. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thiel. Ms. Conover, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I want to say, all right, to Mr. Freund, what you were saying, it sounds to me like we're just holding we're going through the motions. We're holding a place.
Exactly.
We're not, that's what it sounds. And I don't know how we stop kicking this can. You know what I mean? Because what do? The other part is with this 4% increase taxes. This board, this administration, I think the city pretty much knew that we were not in favor of it. So why did we put that in there anyway? Why are we going through the motions? Why? And then to say to you, and this having been in all transparency, having a conversation, nobody's angry but the devil. Charlie, you said, you got to cut, furloughs and things like that. If we're not teaching the kids, nobody needs to get paid anyway. You understand? We have to find another way, but it can't always be on the taxpayers. Again, the people who said that they were going to give us money if we made certain arrangements. I'm talking about real contracts, Mr. Foreign. I'm not talking about any side door deals. Just let me be clear to that. But hold those people accountable instead of holding the taxpayers. We're not even getting our kids educated. We found out that our kids were not technology connected. We weren't one-to-one. It might seem like I'm going off, but these are things that really make sense. But people are still getting paychecks. You understand? We need to 4% for our community is not in the direction that I would want to move in. So I don't know why we put the 4% in there anyway. If we knew that it was going to get here and folks were going to say pull it. I'm just saying, why are we doing the same thing? What's the definition of insanity? I'm just saying.
Well, all I can say, Ms. Conover, is I'm not disagreeing with you that sometimes the process that we're handed may not seem particularly logical, reasonable, or fair. But, we are creatures of the state. We're given rules to play by, and this is one of the rules, that the budget is to be presented in this form, on a form acceptable to the department, and that it will be made available to the public for inspection for 20 days. That's a step that says that we have to do that. Now, if you want to, I have a suggestion to make that might make you feel more comfortable. If someone would want to reflect a motion that simply said that we approve the proposed budget as being prepared, presented, and available to the public as required, without making any indication that there's an approval of 4%, that would be more than sufficient to allow the president to certify that what is required by the school code has been done. In other words, simply the acknowledgement that here, this is what's been given to you to deal with at the next meeting, and for the public to comment on.
So with you saying that, and again, I'm not even sure if these numbers are real. And that's me. That's me. I don't feel comfortable. This is my 3rd year here. And I'm not feeling comfortable that these numbers are real. So what do you do? What do you do? Help me.
What I'm saying is that voting to approve the proposed final budget does not mean that you agree with anything in them. It merely means that you agree, you acknowledge that this is what has been presented to you for your consideration 30 days from now. That's all it means. And that the public should be able to inspect it. And, when the next meeting comes along between now and then, whatever discussions the board deems to have, whatever debate it has next time, it's totally up to the board whether they want to follow this, reduce the tax millage, whatever you want to do, you're free to do next time. The only rule is you can't go over the index, which I don't think there's any worry about that here. But again, this motion and this approval is only to say, yes, this is what they've given us to work with. That's basically what it is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Conover, Mr. Freund. Ms. Harris, I see your hand is up.
Yes, okay. So we're going by, I'm going by what Charlie said. So my question is this. The preliminary budget needs to be adopted 110 days before the proposed budget, unless the board adopts a resolution that we will not raise taxes above the Act 1 index. Did we adopt a resolution for that?
Yeah, I think you're talking about the preliminary budget.
Yes.
Yeah, this is different. This is the proposed final budget. It's very confusing.
I can't hear you.
It's very confusing. What you're looking at the preliminary budget. That's a different thing. We've already done that.
Okay, so we did that 110 days before?
Yeah,
We passed the Act 1 resolution that we wouldn't raise taxes above 4%. So yes, we did do that.
Okay.
It is confusing. There's no question about it. It didn't used to be like that, but Act 1, which is the thing that the legislation that made the index, that introduced a slightly different procedure, and it added this step of the preliminary budget, or the proposed final budget. It used to be that the preliminary budget, didn't have to be adopted until 30 days, but they moved the process way up when they passed that legislation.
And when did we pass that?
Yeah, so we've already done what you said. We did that in a timely way. Yeah, this is
That was January.
Right. Yeah, it's very confusing. Absolutely.
That was January.
Yes.
Okay.
Is there anything else, Ms. Harris?
I'm looking at that 4%. It wasn't never discussed until 2 weeks ago. We didn't have an executive session, and you're asking us to vote on this. It just, once again, it's like you're tying our hands and trying to force us into something that most of us don't want to do. We can't do this to our people here in Allentown. I'm sorry, y'all. I can't believe that you're doing this. You want people to pay a 4% increase when we're in a crisis. People can't pay their rent. People can't, food. They don't have freaking jobs. They don't know if they're going to come back to their jobs. What are we thinking? We have got to be better stewards of the money that we have. We have over $300 million budget, and we can't pay our bills. We can't pay the teachers with this budget. What's going on? Why can't we? People who are certain parts of our, the administration are going to get automatic raises. Freeze them. Everybody else is. I'm looking at my East Penn district. I have friends on that school board. They froze. They are making sure that they're going to make sure that their budget is balanced and their kids are getting taught and it's done correctly. It's done in a timely manner that everybody can live with. I can't live with this. I can't. I'm done.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Ms. Johnson-Watts, I see your hand is up. Oh, not anymore. Okay, is there any more discussion? This is still for the.
It is. I took it down, but I thought I was unmuted. I'm so sorry.
Oh, sorry. That's okay. Go ahead.
So looking at this from a sequential way, how to keep the ship afloat, but at the same time, how to either deplane or deboard people from that ship until another one, or how to actually fix the ship while it is in the water. Whichever way you look at it, the reason for me voting for the TRAN is to make that transition possible. Now, we are at the point where if we are to vote tonight, that 4% is included, I am going to take a chance on whether or not people are going to do what needs to be done starting tomorrow to make sure that we're going to have a balanced budget. If we allow this to go through and say, oh, and by the way, we probably won't do a 4% increase. I am committed to no increase. So with that being said, I would rather, while we're still more than 20 days out, say no to this budget proposal so that we know we have work to do. And we are not accounting on any wiggle room in terms of getting the work done. I am hoping that this meeting will cause us all to take a closer look because last year we were faced with very difficult decisions, and ultimately, by public opinion, it seemed like it was very important that we not take the steps where outside entities begin to determine what happens in our district. So if that be the case, let's do the work now. Let's not vote for a tax increase, and make it sure, let it be known, that if we do not do the tax increase and we still have a deficit in the budget, we still have a lot of work to do. So I just want to make that very clear. I am not going to vote for anything that has a 4% tax increase. If we do have the amendment voted on for adding, removing it and making it a 0% increase, as it's already been mentioned, it does change the numbers, but we can make the amendment that we're going to do the work, at least, of having a 0% increase and finding a way to propose this budget. But I don't know how that plays out in terms of submitting any paperwork that has to be submitted between now and the 20 days out.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Johnson-Watts. Is there any more discussion on the amendment? This is on the amendment to take line 5 down to a 0% millage increase. Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll again to vote on the amendment to reduce 4% to 0%.
Miss Matheson,
No.
Miss Vega,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
No.
Mr. Theo,
No.
Mrs. Brace,
No.
Mrs. Conover,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson-Watts,
Yes.
Miss Wilt,
No.
Miss Harris.
Yes.
5-4, amendment fails.
Okay, so the motion is still on the floor for the approval of the proposed final budget. Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Conover,
I'm sorry, but I didn't hear it again.
We're voting on the approval of the proposed final budget as on the.
I heard approval of the final budget. So that's what we're voting on?
We're voting on the approval of the proposed final budget as it's shown on the screen.
No.
Miss Matheson,
Yes.
Miss Vega,
Nope.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Theo,
Yes.
Miss Harris,
No, no, no.
Mrs. Johnson-Watts,
No.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt.
Yes.
5-4 passes.
Okay, thank you. That was the last item on the agenda. So we will move to requests to address the board. So the public, if you would like to make public comment, now's the time to raise your hand. Donna, I'll let you go first if you're still with us. I did see you. Oh, you up there? Yep. If someone can let Donna in. Donna, if you can just state your name and address for the record.
Donna Reitnauer, 1139 South 10th Street, Allentown.
Okay, you can start.
Okay. I'm an Allentown resident and a proud ASD teacher and also a former ASD parent, as both of my daughters are graduates of William Allen High School, the forever home of Doug Snyder. My purpose for speaking to you this evening is regarding the naming of the new elementary school. I was on the naming committee, and the committee consisted of a diverse group of students, parents, and teachers representing McKinley and Cleveland elementary schools, as well as school board members Sarah Jane Brace and Phoebe Harris. This committee volunteered many hours of their time over the course of 4 to 5 meeting sessions under the planning, preparation, and guidance from the current principals of Cleveland and McKinley elementary schools, Naaman Schlegel and Daria Custer. The public was given the opportunity to make their nominations via the ASD website for over 2 months. Over 120 submissions were received. We went through a series of rubrics to rate these nominations and had the task of narrowing the pool down to 10 and then finally 3. The administration was given 3 nominees. Ultimately, Brigadier General Anna Mae Hayes was designated as the name for the school. However, the name was tabled at the last board meeting. I understand the viewpoint about a name that is reflective of our diverse population in the ASD. And as I understand, 2 of the most recent names do represent our diversity, such as Ramos Elementary and Andre Reed Field. But we do not have anything in the Allentown School District named after a woman. Brigadier General Anna Mae Hayes was the first female general in the U.S. Army. She graduated from Allentown High School and Allentown School of Nursing. She helped pave the way for the rights of women. General Hayes earned the right to be buried at Arlington National Cemetery, but instead chose to be buried at Grandview Cemetery here in Allentown. It seems even more appropriate today with the current pandemic to honor a decorated woman from Allentown who was also a nurse and took care of others. I believe when it comes up next to vote that the Allentown School Board should be appreciative of all the hard work that went into the process of naming the new school and vote unanimously in naming the district's new school, Anna Mae Hayes Elementary, and give women the recognition they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. I see one other hand. Tim Kearney would like to speak if someone can let him in. Tim, if you can just state your name and address for the record.
Timothy Carney, 6065 Whitetail Drive, and this is just open topics?
Yes.
Okay, a couple of things.
It's just time to comment on anything that's not business related.
Okay, a couple things. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Snyder. He brought in his basketball team to Cleveland Elementary one year, and it made a difference to our students and staff. We were in the paper, so thanks, Mr. Snyder, for everything. As far as the school name goes, I'm hoping to work in the new unnamed school, and I would just advise some things going forward. If there's going to be a new committee named, that if diverse student population is a criteria, that be told to the committee beforehand. And if community input and participation is a criteria, that we somehow define what that's going to be, so that the committee that meets isn't told afterwards that there wasn't enough input and participation. Because you heard the frustration with one of the committee members that just spoke. The main reason I'm calling in is because I just want to inform board members and the public, anybody that's listening, about some of the things that teachers are doing, educators are doing. We are working, and I do believe that we should get paid for that work. We're contacting parents. We're available 24/7. We're in committee meetings. I was in one. I'm on sabbatical, but I was in a committee meeting today. We're having weekly Zoom meetings. We're emailing. We're training not just the students in technology, but ourselves. And we had to learn new ways to deliver instruction. We are also helping parents get through technology issues and hurdles. We're contacting parents by emails. We had a school game night on a weekend in in the evening at night had a school game night. We've made videos. We are on Google Classroom. We are helping students on Odyssey. We are helping translate into Spanish for Spanish speaking students. We're doing IEPs. We're helping learning support students. There's just a ton of things that I was a little bit annoyed by the implication that we are not educating during this time. Philadelphia has a 53% elementary participation daily rate. I saw that in the morning call today. It took a lot of work for us to have the high participation rate that we have in Allentown. At our school at Cleveland, I think we're at 88, 89%. And that didn't just happen. It was a lot of work by the board, by our administrator, and by the teachers and educators who made those phone calls. So you can tell maybe I'm a little bit disappointed in the implication that we are not working. Thank you very much.
Sarah, you're muted.
Yep, I realized that. Sorry. Thank you, Tim. I don't see any other hands raised from the public. So we will move on to old business. Is there any old business to come before the board?
Yes, I did raise my hand. I don't know if you saw it, Sarah.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to untable the agreement between the Institute for Student Achievement, ISA, and the Allentown School District for Instructional Coaching Services that was tabled at our last board meeting.
Okay, and I
And
will
I will
second.
second that.
Thank you, Ms.
I'll second
Matheson. This is to untable something, so there is no discussion on that motion. So this is again to untable the agreement between the Institute for Student Achievement, ISA, and the Allentown School District for Instructional Coaching Services. Please call the roll.
Ms. Vega,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson, Ms. Matheson,
I'm sorry, yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
No.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover.
Yes.
8-1 passes.
Okay, so this is untabled. There was a previous motion made at our last meeting, so the motion is for the approval of the contract. Is there any discussion on the motion? Ms.
Yes.
Johnson,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Cheryl.
go ahead, Ms. Johnson Watts.
So we vote on this, and if we approve this, when is it funded? And what is the timeline in terms of them actually starting work?
Could you repeat the first part of the question, please? I heard the timeline piece. It was something about funding you mentioned.
So if we approve this today, when does this get funded? And when do they actually begin the work, date-wise?
Right, got it. So as stated in the board memo, the funding is coming out of the 1920 CSI funds. The second part of your question, as stipulated in the contract, we have a tentative starting date to begin in the fall of 20 and move forward to the spring. However, there's flexible language in there that allows us to revise based on the pandemic. And in addition, as an added layer of flexibility, there's the option for the district to consider virtual coaching based on research and other emerging practices that are being used during this pandemic. So we tried to layer in as many options for flexibility and reconsideration as we could, given our current situation.
So the funds come out of 1920 and the dollars go to the service provider when?
upon the district being invoiced for the services. The services were initially supposed to be rendered during this school year.
Okay, so Dr. Brown, I appreciate you attempting to answer the question. What I want to make very clear to everyone is that as we go through this bridge situation that we just voted a tran for, I need a better understanding of what dollars exist where and when they leave from point A and go to point B, because cash flow is just as important as funds availability. So I am going to be very clear going forward about my questions regarding our cash flow and how things go. It's a whole other conversation for another time. But for now, that is why I was not into untabling this, because I still feel as though they're not going to be starting the work anytime soon. I think it's a wonderful organization, but at the same time, it's the same way as someone says, hey, Mom, I need the money for camp. Well, are you going to camp this summer, or are we going to wait and see what happens in August?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Johnson-Watts. Ms. Wilt?
Thank you, Mrs. Brace. I just wanted to say that I made the motion to untable because at our last education co-chairs meeting, we were able to learn more about this contract and the fact that these dollars are CSI dollars from the Department of Public Education and title fund dollars from the federal government that are designated for specific uses. And having had the ability to learn more about how this program will help us move our middle schools forward, I wanted to bring this back up for discussion. And while I have complete appreciation for those who stood up at the last board meeting and for the teachers that engaged with me about other needs that we have in our buildings, I will be voting for this because this is funding that is being provided to us by the Pennsylvania Department of Education and the federal title fund dollars to help us move our middle schools out of corrective action. Thank you.
So do these funds have an expiration date? Is it even, there was no flexibility given the coronavirus?
So again, just to clarify, these are 1920 funds, and no, there was not. That's why we're adjusting for flexibility, and we've done this under the leadership of the solicitor within the contract, working with the vendor.
Well, just want to make known, because we should not brush these things over. As we try to figure out what money we do have for different things, I think what they're doing is wonderful. But let's be clear. We're trying to understand how our dollars are being spent and when they're being spent. And we, as far as I know, received the 9.8 million, and we're not going to see that until after July 1st. So this brings about a lot of concerns, and to see something else be untabled that is an expenditure attached to it, even though some of the funding is coming from other sources, it does create a concern for cash flow. At least for me, it does. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Conover, I see your hand is up.
Well, I have a question about tabling. So, because I don't want something to be tabled without giving the opportunity to have a discussion. So could you let me know when that time is? It doesn't have anything to do with this, but before somebody untables something else, can you, can the solicitor, can you tell me how we can get past it? Because I have a feeling that something's going to be untabled here tonight, and then somebody's going to tell me not to say something. So could you help me out with that, please?
So when you untable, when you take a vote to table something, there's no discussion on voting to table. And then if that needs to be untabled at a future meeting, you vote to untable it without discussion. You either vote yes or no to untable, and then the discussion happens on the motion that was made previously.
Sarah, the last part, I'm sorry, sounds like you go wonk, wonk, wonk. But say, I heard.
So
the
you,
motion-
so you vote, there's someone makes a motion to untable, someone seconds that motion. Because it's a table or untabling motion, you can't have any discussion on it. You either vote yes or no to table or untable. If it passes and it's untabled, that's when you then can have discussion on the motion that was previously made at another meeting.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. Ms. Harris, I see your hand is up.
Dr. Brown, I just wanted to, I wanted you to inform us a little bit more about what this situation is. When we voted on it, you weren't there to pretty much explain what was going on. I understand Ms. Johnson was concerned, especially when it comes to spending money, because we do, like I said, we have to be good stewards of our money. But to me, this is being very good stewards of our money because we are helping our teachers expand. One of the biggest things is culturally as well. So that is what this vendor is going to be doing for us. So please explain it a little bit more of what we're getting for our money on this one.
Sure, and perhaps it would be helpful to start from the beginning. CSI is the acronym for Comprehensive School Improvement. It is the current ESSA designation under the new ESSA reg. All 4 of our middle schools were designated as performing in the bottom 5% of the Commonwealth for all students in all areas. Along with the ESSA designation comes an allocation of funds from PDE. Those funds are limited in what they can be spent for. They can only be spent on supporting school improvement in the 4 middle schools. They cannot be spent for another school. They cannot be spent on anything outside of what has been identified at the federal level as evidence-based tiered intervention support at either the teacher level or the student level. As a result of the comprehensive school improvement process, which we have worked in tandem with PDE, school improvement plans were developed with committees, with PDE support, with IU support, with district administration. Those plans include evidence-based practices, again, at the teacher and student level, one of which is instructional coaching. Instructional coaching was identified as a gap in the services that our teachers are able to perform because A, as you heard, the district furloughed a number of those positions, and B, as we're all well aware of, we're facing a deficit and not able to hire at the levels that we've hired historically. So we sat as an administrative group in collaboration with principals who had already written instructional coaches as people positions into their plans, asking one basic question: how do we get principals the services they need to support their teachers and students, particularly in schools where the achievement levels, the achievement gap is particularly acute between African American, English learners, Hispanics, and some of our white students with IEPs. That data and information has come before the board and the community on several occasions. One of the strategies that we identified collaboratively was to couple ourselves and partner with an institution, one of which is known as Institute of Student Achievement, that not only supports instructional coaching, again, an evidence-based strategy for school improvement. That's in all the research and all the schools that are working towards school improvement. How do we partner with them and get the function of instructional coaching for our teachers and help our teachers to expand their skill set and develop their knowledge base beyond the traditional stand and deliver training? How do we help them reach the actual students that they need support reaching? L's and all the other students that anybody can look up and see we're not servicing at the levels we need to as a system. Again, ISA has proven in that area. They're working with us and they're developing their plans, and all of our plans are vetted and supported by PDE. And again, the funds from comprehensive school improvement can only be spent on school improvement strategies in each of the middle schools. So is there anything I can touch on, Ms. Harris, that would help further clarify, or do you think that was helpful?
So to me, it's that you're saying, look, we know we didn't have our education curriculum. We know we don't. We're building that. So if we have it, if we're building our education curriculum, then we also have to build with our teachers' instructional basis. We have to do both. They have to coincide with each other. So you can't have one without the other. So if we're building our education, and we must build our instruction to go along with it. And as well, if we're going to build those things, then we have the underlying part is the culture. We have to bring all those up to standard at least, correct?
That is all included in the instructional coaching. Yes, building capacity to make sure our instructional delivery model is supported, and our teachers are able to not only deliver a core curriculum, but to tap in the type of student that they're servicing in our classrooms. Because the data shows that that's an area of growth for us.
Win-win all around. So it's a win-win everywhere we go.
Yes, and we've had some early successes in the small coaching pilot that we were able to launch on some smaller CSI funds. And based on that data, again, that is why we're bringing this contract to a wider scale so that we can get the people who service our kids the help they need the most, supporting those while holding accountable.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So thank you both. And I think there may be some confusion as to why I said what I said. As I said 3 or 4 times, I think what they're doing is wonderful. I have no doubt about that. For me, the question is about the timing. And my specific questions were about where the funds were coming from and the timing at which these funds would be expended. So I have no problem with the program, just to be clear. My concern is for the timing of the expenditure. If it can't be spent on anything else except for this program within the schools, then there is nothing else that anyone sees any need for, then that is what I need to hear more so than the wonderful things about this program, because I feel it is a wonderful program. So I do not debate that. My question is, given our current conditions, is there nothing else that we are in need of for those designated student groups at this time that we're willing to forego those dollars so that this program gets launched or expanded?
Sure, I don't think anybody questioned that of you. I think you were questioning, making sure, are we using these dollars correctly? And if there's another way we could use it, then let's look at that. But I think Dr. Brown explained it to us. This is what it's designated for. It's not going to happen until our kids go back to school. And that's it, nothing more.
But we're voting on it now, right? And we're voting on the expenditure now, it seems.
Right, but it's not going to be used until we are back in school. Am I right? Am I correct, Dr. Brown?
We have layered into the contract that we can start when school opens, and or we can consider a virtual option based on whatever the circumstances are at the time. So we have options embedded in the contract. And just to clarify, the funds can only be spent on ESSA identified school improvement strategies. So are there other needs in middle schools? Absolutely, but we'll have to cover them through other funding sources.
Explain to our parents what ESSA is, please.
ESSA is the Every Student Succeeds Act, which is the current educational reg policy, however we'd like to refer to that, that guides everything that we're doing at the federal level and the state level. The state's interpretation of ESSA is the PA, I forget the exact plan, but our future ready, and all of those pieces come out of it. Our future ready compliance, our school improvement, basically all school improvement, our TSI, our ATSI, and our CSI designations and planning are all governed under this new reg. And the only schools that get funding solely to use to improve and work towards school improvement are the middle schools. And they have not given any guidance on whether the timelines associated with spending the funds will be extended. We are still being held to spending the funds according to the way the feds and the state level says when we need to spend these funds.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Ms. Conover, is your hand just still up from before?
No, you guys, no, I have a question.
Okay.
This is for Dr. Brown. Dr. Brown, could you, because I'm on the education committee, and I know you were, you guys were very expressive in terms of these people using, teaching our kids. Can you talk about restorative practices, how restorative practice, because I know we talked about restorative practice, and I've had people walk up to me and say, what is restorative practice? Can you just talk about that a little bit, how restorative practices will actually be intertwined with what we're doing?
Sure, I'll try. So restorative practices, number one, emerged as a district priority as we talked as a district through our strategic framework about valuing culture, climate, and basically all that our families and students present in the classroom and in other areas. How do we value the relationship and begin to use that restoratively to address any and all challenges or situations? How do we begin from a restorative position, valuing and respecting folks? Why and how we were able to embed that into the school improvement work, particularly at our middle schools, is because as our middle schools and high schools were participating in the school improvement pilot, for which the district received over $800,000 2 years ago to participate in, we saw an emerging theme of climate and culture issues in all of the buildings. What we also knew, the backdrop to that, was that there wasn't a strategic and intentional way that the district was addressing this and supporting at the district level, building level, and classroom level. We looked at the research, we looked at emerging districts, and we looked at the needs of all of our stakeholders and found alignment between what we needed to do and what restorative practices offered. And so restorative practices is written into a number of district driving or organizational strategic documents, not just the framework, but it's now written into our middle school plans as well. Toward that end, we are supporting the middle school with implementing restorative practices by offering training that the district has sponsored, promoted, and worked with not only our administrators, but our unions as well, to allow for our teachers to come in and engage in this work in a strategic way. Now, restorative practices was in the district before, but not in this way and not with the strategy and intentionality aligned with it. So we offered it to our teachers. We're supporting them by having them write it in their plans and build out on what the district started at the building level. And also adding metrics and measurable goals and interim targets also, so that we're not just engaged in restorative practices for the sake of restorative practices. We're actually using it to move the needle. Have we had some resistance? Absolutely, at all levels. Do we know that we have to tweak and be flexible and collaborative? Absolutely. And I'd add to that beyond the internal ASD stakeholder groups, we've reached across the street to our police department and included them in on some of the planning and work with restorative practices. We've got community agencies involved so that everyone is on the same page and understands that this is the new normal that we're trying to create, where everyone involved in moving our students forward, supporting our staff, is coming from a restorative perspective. And so I went really broad, but narrowed it down. And now I'll go back to middle schools. And restorative practices is written into their plans as a strategy to support with climate and relationship building in some of our most challenged buildings, which are our middle schools. Is that helpful, or is there anything else I can add?
You were helpful. I know we talked about bringing the other outfit in, and I just wanted you to explain how those coaches that are going to be coming in and working with us, with our children, how our plan with having restorative practices in place, how that's going to work with that outfit that's coming in, with that money that we have to spend. That's where my question lies, and then also in terms of, we used to talk about diversity and years ago. I haven't heard it too much here lately with all the other stuff that's been going on, but in terms of the coaches that will be coming in, will the coach, do we have any, do we know if they're going to be diverse, or are they going to look like our children? I don't know if that's the right way to ask the question, but that's the only way that I know to ask the question. Or
Sure, I understand what you're asking.
Follow
Sure.
me?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a two-part answer, but let me give you the response that I absolutely am aware of and have knowledge of. These are coaches who have worked in other urban environments with the same challenges where English learners aren't achieving at the equitable rates as their peers, challenges where members of other social identity groups aren't achieving and receiving access as they should. Solely related to the groups that we're all already designated for not servicing at the highest level: Hispanic males, African American males, and students with IEPs. So these coaches were handpicked, if you will, based on their experiences and their accomplishments and successes with those groups, because that is the area that we're looking to build capacity across the board in our building and classroom levels. In terms of what they look like, I would have to defer to someone who's been there and seen the coaches, and that would be Missy Smith, our director of grants. So either she can jump in and say whether she knows that or not, but I don't know that. I was more concerned with the background and what they brought to the table in terms of skill set and how they could help our folks here in ASD.
Dr. Brown, I cannot answer that question. We can get that answer from ISA. But you're absolutely correct on the matching process with schools, so that the coaches, they work with the school to identify a coach that fits that school, and there's a matching process with that, but we can get that answer for you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Brown, and thank you, Missy.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Conover. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any more? Seeing and hearing no more, please call the roll on approving the contract with ISA.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Ms. Vega.
Yes.
9-0 passes.
Thank you. Is there any other old business to come before the board? Ms. Conover, is your hand still up from before?
Yes, I'll raise it. I'll take it down.
Seeing and hearing no other old business to come before the board, there are two items under new business. They're both resolutions. The first one is a resolution to expand the RCAP funding. This resolution, I'm not going to read it in its entirety because you all have it and it was posted online for the public to see. But this resolution would expand the redevelopment assistance capital program to allow schools to tap into that funding. The governor is proposing to add an additional $1 billion in funds. And as a district, we have over $5 million of identified hazard materials in our schools that we could potentially apply for these funds to help alleviate some of the money from our general budget that we currently use to take care of some of those items. So I'm making a motion to approve this resolution. Is there a second to approve the resolution for the RCAP funding?
I'll make a second.
Mr. Miller, is there any discussion on this resolution? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Theo,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Ms. Vega,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
9-0 passes.
And the second resolution is calling for charter school funding reform. And this one is just calling for our legislators to rewrite the current charter school law that dictates how the funding formula is established. This is something that was put out by PSBA, and there's over almost 250 school districts across the state that have already passed this resolution. So I'm making a motion for us to pass the charter school funding reform resolution. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Wilt, any discussion on the motion? Ms. Johnson Watts?
Yes, so I agree that there needs to be charter school reform in terms of how the billing system is orchestrated or arranged, but I do not agree with the way that this is written. This seems very opinion-driven. It's got some numbers in here, but at the same time, it doesn't speak to what we would like to see happen in terms of the rates structure. It speaks more to, these are some large numbers and we need to change it. So I'm not for the way it's written, and I'm not going to support this proposal. I do believe that we do need to revamp the actual billing structure, but I do not agree with the way this is written.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
Ms. Harris,
No.
Mrs. Conover,
No.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Ms. Vega, Ms. Vega,
No.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
No.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Theo,
Yes.
5-4 passes.
Okay, is there any other new business to come before the board? Seeing and hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Ms. Wilt, is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Harris, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.